Hi, my name is Karen Holmes. I'm the founder and director of the World Peace Organization for the One World Government. Today I want to talk about light. I've been talking about the pandemic and how the pandemic has been caused, if you've listened to any of my other videos, about fear that a virus is a thought form that's manifested into the physical. So today, let's say we're the people who started that idea, where it started or where it catches on in different places. It's because the thoughts are so similar. It's like it's going, if you excuse the expression, a thought form that goes viral. Maybe that's how they got the idea going viral. Okay, so today I wanted to talk about, flip that around. If the virus came out of fear and darkness, what can we do to counteract that? And that is figure out what light is, to understand it. People think about light as being like an understanding that it is, in a way it is. It's like light. Light is a substance that when you put a thought form into it, it manifests matter. It's matter. It creates matter. It manifests matter. Okay, so if you are using light, it creates matter. Now, I've been talking about light, that each of the 7 major religions comes together and like a piece of a pie and teaches one piece of information, one segment of the information that you need to create the life you want. This is the planning process that God, the creator of us all, not the old man on the throne idea or somebody else's idea of what somebody else's religion is or whatever. We're talking about not organized religion. We're talking about the pure teachings that were taught by each of the spiritual teachers, the avatars of each of these religions. So we're talking about Jesus, who came up the principles of creativity. Moses taught the principles of productivity. Gautama Buddha taught the principles of Buddhism, taught the principles of prosperity. Believe it or not, he was the stories of their lives are very interesting. The Prophet Muhammad taught the principles in Islam, teaches the principles of the glitches or equality. Rama teaches the principles of security. Confucianism and Confucius the principles of capacity, and Lao Tzu taught the principles of tolerance and empowerment. So when you put all of these together, if you have an idea, a plan, then you can go around the planning process and you can bring the idea down into the physical. You can create something that has never been created before. Okay, so I'm going to look at, if you look at that each of these avatars were enlightened beings. What exactly did they understand? They understood what? They were enlightened. They had light. They had the idea of Christianity and coming up with a plan. And the plan that Jesus of Nazareth talked about was based on the Beatitudes. The meek shall inherit the earth. In other words, if U.S. foreign policy is based on waging war to gain control of natural resources and strategic locations, then we're not the meek people. We're not the meek, but might is right is middle-aged thinking. It was Old Testament thinking, you can say. So what happened is that the colors of Christianity, each of these have, let's say, I'm going to talk about Hanukkah, but actually it was Moses, it's more the Passover that was important. But that had to do with light too. It has to do with light. The idea of, I'm in the process of putting my Christmas lights on. This is a very old building that I work in, and I have an old window with an old metal grate. I have Christmas lights, these old-fashioned Christmas lights that I put up. And it looks really fun. It's nice. Okay, but why do you think the colors are important? Because why do you think red and green are the two colors that are Christmas colors? It's because if you look at this idea of a rainbow, the promise that God gave us that we were never going to go through another major crisis. For heaven's sakes, but here we are in another major crisis. Why? Because we have a plan, a solution to that. God gives us our Creator. I don't talk about the old man on the throne. I'm talking about our Creator. We want to be enlightened beings also, don't we? We want to make our ascension. We don't want to go down into hell, so to speak. This is not rocket science. Okay, so what happens is that each of the colors of the rainbow, you look at the idea of the promise from God, okay? But then that is, if you look at Christianity and the plan, that is Jesus and these two colors, mostly red. The color of the rainbow, creativity, is red. The idea of the glitches, dealing with equality, is green. So Islam is green in the rainbow. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. So if you go around and look at each of these colors, then you can, of the rainbow, you superimpose the rainbow on top of this, you can understand that when these two religions oppose each other, they unempower. You could say there's no tolerance when it's lacking this idea. See, it's here. So when a Muslim stands up and protests and says, you're not being fair to us, we don't like what you're doing, then what happens is then a Christian is responsible for coming up with a plan, you could say, that benefits everyone. Okay, so now think about that for just a minute. If the Muslims if the Christians don't hear what the Muslims are saying, that's when it turns into terrorism. If you're not listening to somebody, they raise their voices to be heard, oftentimes to the point of violence. So all you have to do is open a dialogue and find out why people are angry. All right, and that ends the terrorism. Okay, if you have a plan that benefits everyone, why would anybody object? Although what happens is when you come up with a plan, it threatens the security and support of the people, you can say, who oppose that idea, oppose the plan, security and support. Okay? Basically here, because of that idea. Now, the support idea, we can talk about the security here. The support idea is different because if there is the reason the support idea is important is because, but it doesn't fit with this, is because these two come up together, they get into kind of a battle. They oppose each other. And then what happens is you have the Christians and the Muslims getting upset with each other. Then the Jews get upset and they pull as the pendulum is swinging back and forth, they consider themselves to be victims, and that pulls it around so that the pendulum is starting to go like this, and it brings in more and more people. Okay, so the security is not there anymore, and then what happens here is when this happens and this happens, these people here, the Buddhists, by doing that, they create a fourth element, and it stops this pendulum from swinging. It stops. So the support aspect of it. Now, I've been talking to people about, so that's why these two colors are important, is you bring in Islam and you bring in the plan. You bring in the glitches and the plan, and together what they do is they oppose each other, they fight. But the Prince of Peace, Jesus was the Prince of Peace. Basically, what happens is that brings in the next people, who are the orange people. I actually have an orange bulb right here. That brings in orange. That is red, orange. These are the Jews, basically. I don't think I have a yellow one. I don't have a yellow bulb on this one. Okay, so then the yellow bulb is this. Let's say you have a problem that begins to swing this idea, and people are playing the role of I'm a victim. Then the support aspect of it is, let's say, if you did you ever see the movie Witness with Harrison Ford? That's a really good example of this idea. Okay, you have Harrison Ford, the detective, who he's a boy, an Amish boy, witnesses a murder, and he's the only one who can testify, but he doesn't want to do that because it's against their religion. But he has to do that because he's the only witness to it, and his life is threatened. So Harrison Ford goes and protects him, and basically goes in and not infiltrate, but he goes in and protects the boy. He's pretending that he's working on the farm with them, in the Amish family. But what happens is the police chief here is basically causing problems, dealing with glitches. He's the one that's the villain, so to speak, opposing this idea. He's got a plan that went to this point, causing it. So anyway, what happens is there's darkness there. But what they do is, instead of the leader of the Amish fighting a war, the man has a gun, he could shoot lots of people. At the last scene, all the Amish people come together and they watch. There's this support idea of it, that if you can't shoot, you only have 6 bullets in your gun and maybe not that many, how can you shoot all of these people? If there are 50 people who are standing there watching this happening, it's over. The fight is over. So if you are in a conflict and you have a husband and wife who are fighting, and the children are being dragged into it, they're the victims of it. Then the judge will stand in. It takes a 4th element to stop this from happening. So all these ideas go around and around and around and around. All right, this is all enlightened idea. If you would like to create the life you want, if you have been dragged into a conflict, I talked about how the virus, the COVID-19 virus, started out when somebody equated people and snakes. And then the ripples of effects have continued to go off. Well, when you do what's in everyone's best interest as an enlightened being, and you're going around the planning circle, what happens is the same thing. Ripples of effects go off, but it just keeps freeing people to function on a higher level. Okay, the person who's held accountable actually can function on a higher level too, because being held accountable for his or her actions actually gives them a chance to understand what they were doing wrong. If you can't convince somebody that what they're doing isn't right, and they hit the next crisis point doing it, then basically accountability is important. Okay, so now this is an enlightened idea. This is light. Each of the major religions teaches one segment of the planning process that you need to create the life you want. What happens is it starts first on the spiritual level, and then it goes to the mental level. It's like we're led along. We have a soul contract, a soul agreement it's called, with our Creator to introduce us to certain people at certain times. We're going to fulfill our purpose in life. So the Good Shepherd idea leads us where we need to go. And then this is all just fits all of this stuff that we've always heard into a logical idea. Then it's explaining the idea of enlightenment. Each of the ideas are allowing us to fulfill our purpose in life, to take what we created on the spiritual level before we were born, to undo the karma that we created in past lives, and then to come in and undo the damage that we've done by coming in and putting ourselves into pretty much the same situation, and then we do a better job of it this time. This is the plan that we created for ourselves before we were born. Our purpose in life was a soul agreement, is a soul agreement with our Creator. It's our purpose in life. We each have a purpose in life, a group purpose, an individual purpose, and a racial purpose, which is our family heritage. That when our family got kicked off course, and basically we're just going in loops, kind of like Groundhog Day, the movie with Bill Murray. Okay, so if you would like to start to bring light back into the world, if you've been facing problems with the glitches, somebody's plan is causing problems, then the idea is to the Beatitudes, and to stand on the principles of creating a plan, bringing it down from the spiritual level to the mental level. You go around the planning process. You went around the planning process on the spiritual level. You brought in all the people you were supposed to meet in this world, and then on this level, the third dimension, and then you go through on the mental level and you figure out all of this stuff. And once you do that, then you go around it on the physical level and you create it. That is how you manifest what you need. Everything is there. When you reach a certain point, what you need will be there. When you go forward, what you need will be there. You'll meet the right people. You'll do the right things. You'll absolve your sins, basically. You'll deal with the karmic debt. You'll make win-win agreements with people, and you'll build up the power that I talk about in my power source invention. This is the free power source invention, how to get your power back. You stand on the principles of universal law, and there's a loop that goes, like, say, between when you're dealing with family relationships, there's a loop that goes up to God, and there's a loop that goes down into this area. And they when you make a win-win agreement, you start to energize and build, this is like a battery, you start to store energy in this area right here. This is how, believe it or not, this is how the aliens function too, to store power that they need for their space engine that will take them interdimensionally. They function like on the 8th dimension. They go the 8th dimension and then come down again. They don't travel from here to there with an atomic engine. They don't do that. They don't burn fuel. They use the energy of win-win agreements, and they build it up. This will become apparent when the technology team comes in. They'll be able to explain it better than I do. Okay, so therefore, if we had one of these, not an oatmeal container for heaven's sakes, if we had one of these, a finished product with the free power source invention, the light source invention. This is the light source invention that counters this idea. Universal law is where we get our light from. On this level, we're working with God, the creator of us all. And then what happens is it creates a sense of balance again. Let's say if an engine is cavitating, causing problems, it has to be in a state of balance. If this is a wheel, it has to be in a state of balance. So we have to balance all of our chakras. You might have heard that before. These are our chakras. And if you look under the Hindus, And the Buddhist drawings, if you search for the chakras, you'll see that they're different colors. This is not new stuff. This is something where we're understanding it now. And some people have already gone ahead and understood it, but they maybe not realized that there was a seven bringing together allows us to create the life we want, because nobody's perfect at this yet. So that's all I wanted to talk about today. I can go back to putting my lights up again and celebrating Christmas and Hanukkah and Wesak and Ramadan and all the other ones, because some of the other ones don't really have celebrations the same way, because not Wesak, anyway, Diwali, that's the one that is also light. They have the little, in Hinduism, they have the celebrations that explain, that have the little light, I don't know what they're called. I don't speak Hindu. Basically, the little light fixed oil lamps too. But Taoism and Confucianism really don't have any days that are specific holidays. But so what we do is we just celebrate the teachings of each of them and Moses and each of these ideas, because Passover, for example, is the celebration of stepping away from, if you look at that, Passover, it has to do with security, wandering in the wilderness. People, this line right here between security, if you can't deal with security and move into capacity to create your life, then basically this is where people face their end of life crisis right here. This is a very, very terrible point in the planning process. This is where people realize if they can't figure out how to function from their own capacity, then that's when they face their end of life crisis. So you can tell that area is very important. That's why a lot of people right now are dying, because they can't deal with security. We have like a hostile takeover of our country, the end of our democracy. People have gone along for a long time, but it's happening all over. Ukraine, for example, the United States is dealing with a hostile takeover. So I talk about that, all of this in my books. If you go on to the faithofthepureray.org, and you'll see how all of these interconnect and what each of the teachings are. Basically, I haven't done any blogs for a long time, because if you're looking at this main idea, you'll see how this project will move forward and be created. It'll become a school where people will actually go and learn the principles of this, each of the religions. Okay, so in January, you can consider yourself a Christian. Everybody can consider themselves a Christian, or when they start school, and then they go and learn the principles of Judaism and how to bring in the people that you need. And if you in the next class starts out with clerics who are Buddhists, and you can learn all the principles of Buddhism, and all the way through the rest of the year. And then by that time you should be able to figure out how to create your life you want, because that's how we can. If somebody is an immigrant and wants to go from place to place, the international government will have an office in that same building. And if people want to leave their country because they feel they've been oppressed and go someplace else, the international government will help them, guarantee their right to leave, and maybe even help them find a new place where their talents and gifts are needed. And their culture is respected, and they fit into the new situation without having, kind of like the way the people came to America a long time ago. All right. That's all. I ask that you like, share, and subscribe. But most of all, share, because this is important. There are a lot of people right now, because of COVID-19, who are seeing snakes. It's not fair what's happening. They're upset. Some people are equating ideas that shouldn't be equated, like people and snakes. And then we'll unravel all these in the books too. The snakes are a problem. There's a problem. There's a glitch in the plan. And then, if the plan doesn't stand on the principles of the root cause of the problem, it makes the crisis worse. So that's what creates this back and forth pendulum. My organization, I'm separating my organization. I'm starting to separate myself from my organization, not with the idea that I am moving out of it, but the organization is starting to create, let's say, like an amoeba, an arm that comes out, and that is the Catholic Church in America idea, and the idea of terrorism, dealing with terrorism, the two issues, and sexual abuse by the priests, which are two power games that the church Catholic Church cannot handle from within the church. So our organization is kind of moving off. I'm responsible for those two ideas. I'm still responsible for the overview idea because I'm the principal of it, but I have to kind of pull off and bring in the people to help me do that. And I'm one of the first people, and as I'm separating out, then other people will come in and do the same thing, and the amoeba will grow, and then it'll just keep spreading out and growing. So I ask that you like, share, and subscribe. But the most of all right now is, if we have this idea of darkness, let's look at what the light is first and understand that it's a creative process, that a thought form creates matter. If a thought form creates a virus, a thought form based on principles, spiritual principles, can create matter, and that is your project. That is creating something that has never been created before. You created it on the spiritual level before you're born, your purpose in life. So basically then God gave you your talents and gifts, and that's what you apply to make it happen. What you need, everything you need, including your talents and gifts, to bring it about. So that is another thing I'm supposed to do, is to start a prayer circle that works to help people create their talents and gifts, taking each of these ideas one step after another, after another, after another. All right, so like, share, and subscribe, and I'll try and do my job to bring enlightenment to the world, and you do your job too. Not so much necessary to put up Christmas lights, or even, you can celebrate any way you want to. You can celebrate Christmas, you can celebrate Hanukkah, you can celebrate Diwali or Ramadan or anything. Nobody's going to, in our organization, nobody will ever interfere with what you are doing. But please don't forget that all the religions work together to introduce this idea. God went to each of these people and taught them one segment of the information, and it's like a computer game where you have to go around and collect the keys. All right, so go around and collect the keys. Puree.org. Okay, like, share, and subscribe, but most of all share, because this is important. Thank you.